The love in the Banco household was a tangible thing, as warm and constant as the Cape Town sun that streamed through the large windows of their Camps Bay home. It was in the vibrant clash of patterns, the Zulu beadwork on the wall beside the framed Nigerian Ankara fabric. It was in the symphony of sounds, the rhythmic pulse of Afrobeats from Amora's room, the sizzle of boas on the bray mixed with the scent of jollof rice. For Dr. Adewale Banco, this beautiful, chaotic harmony was the true measure of his success. Chapter 1: A Dream Sown in Foreign Soil. Adewale's journey began not with conflict, but with an unwavering determination. Landing in Cape Town from Lagos, he was wide-eyed but resolute. The challenges were many: navigating a new bureaucracy, having his qualifications scrutinized, facing the quiet alienation of being an outsider. But he met each hurdle not with bitterness, but with a quiet, steadfast focus. He worked nights as a hospital orderly, his mind absorbing the rhythms of the world while his hands performed menial tasks. By day, he was a fixture in the university library, his nose buried in medical texts. It was there he found his sanctuary, and her. Nomolanga, a marketing student with a laugh that could light up the dimmest study corral, was researching a project on urban migration. Their first conversation was an easy, joyful discovery of shared ambition and a mutual fascination with each other's words. Chapter 2: The Partnership. Their love story became the bedrock of his ascent. When Ode passed his boards and began his residency, Noma was his strategist. She saw the power of his story, the diligent Nigerian doctor building a new life. She helped him craft his narrative, connecting him with community leaders and building a practice founded on trust and excellence. Their big break was a testament to their partnership. After Ode led a marathon surgery that saved a local magnate's son, the grateful father offered financial backing. While Ode envisioned new equipment, Noma envisioned an institution. She presented a comprehensive plan for a community-focused medical center, her marketing genius and innate empathy convincing the investor they were backing more than a doctor, they were backing a legacy. The Banco Medical Center rose from the ground, a symbol of what could be achieved when brilliant minds and loving hearts worked as one. Ode was the healing hands, Noma was the compassionate heart that made the hospital a beloved pillar of the community. Chapter 3: A Tapestry Woven with Love. Their family was their greatest creation. Their 3 children were living, breathing testaments to cultural fusion. 17-year-old Amora created art that blended Ndeboli geometry with Yoruba symbols. 14-year-old Chinu could deliver a science report on the properties of the Omlenaian herb 1 minute, and debate the history of the Benin bronzes the next. 10-year-old Saifo, with a football always at his feet, was as comfortable at a braai as he was at a Nigerian family gathering. Their home was a perpetual celebration. On Heritage Day, Ode would don a traditional ISI Koko head ring with his suit, beaming as Noma and the girls danced in their vibrant Isidwaba. On Nigerian Independence Day, Noma would masterfully oversee the cooking of a massive pot of pepper soup, her Zulu family joining in the festivities with gusto. They were not 2 cultures coexisting, they were a new, singular, beautiful culture born of love. Their world was not shattered by a slow decline, but by a single, cataclysmic night. It began with a phone call that tore Ode from a deep sleep. The voice on the other end was frantic, choked with smoke and panic. "Dr. Banco, the hospital, it's on fire." He drove through the night like a man possessed, a cold dread coiling in his gut. From a mile away, he saw the orange glow staining the sky above Table Mountain. When he arrived, the scene was one of surreal horror. The Banco Medical Center, his life's work, the monument to his and Noma's dream, was a roaring inferno. The relentless crackle of flames and the wail of fire engines created a dissonant symphony of destruction. He stood, paralyzed, as the windows of his top-floor office exploded outwards, raining glittering shards onto the street below. The investigation later concluded it was a catastrophic electrical fault in the old wing, a part of the building scheduled for renovation the following month. But the reason didn't matter. The result was absolute. The state-of-the-art equipment, the records, the very walls, everything was gone. The insurance coverage, which had once seemed more than adequate, was brutally outpaced by the sheer scale of the loss and complex liability clauses he'd never fully dissected. Legal battles with partners and suppliers drained what little liquid assets remained. Within a year, the man worth over $50 million was functionally bankrupt. The vultures of death circled. The beautiful Camps Bay house, the cars, the investments, all were sold to appease creditors. They moved into a small, rented apartment in a modest neighborhood. The vibrant tapestry of their life seemed to have been burnt to ashes. Ode, the brilliant surgeon and empire builder, was now a broken man, hollowed out by failure, adrift in a sea of despair. He spent his days in a fog of grief, his spirit as scarred as the hospital's ruins. He felt he had failed Noma, failed his children, failed the memory of the hungry boy from Lagos who had dared to dream too big. It was on one such grey afternoon, as Ode sat staring at a wall, that Noma came to him. She knelt before him, taking his hands in hers. Her eyes, always so full of light, were now pools of unwavering resolve. Adewale, she said, her voice soft but firm. Look at me. This is not the end. It is a comma, not a full stop. He shook his head, a gesture of utter defeat. Noma, everything is gone. A small, knowing smile touched her lips. No, my love. Not everything. She placed a simple folder on his lap. You built an empire for us. And while you were building, I was fortifying. Puzzled, he opened the folder. Inside were property deeds, financial statements, and bank books. There was a small commercial building in Durban she had bought a decade ago, a block of flats in Johannesburg, and several lucrative land plots. Over the 20 years of their marriage, from her own salary and the business profits she had meticulously managed, Noma had quietly built a separate, significant real estate portfolio. She had never touched it, calling it their rainy day fund, a concept Ode had always smiled at indulgently. Now, it was a lifeline in a hurricane. The liquidated value of these assets is substantial, she explained calmly. There is also a cash reserve. She handed him a bank statement. The balance was just over $2 million. This is for you. To start again. Ode looked from the documents to his wife's face, his vision blurring with tears. He saw not just his savior, but the brilliant, pragmatic partner who had always seen steps ahead. While he had been looking at the stars, she had ensured the ground beneath their feet was solid. In that moment, his shame was washed away by a tidal wave of awe and gratitude. With Noma's capital and unshakable belief as his foundation, Ode began again. He was no longer the young dreamer, but a seasoned warrior with 20 years of experience, contacts, and hard-won wisdom. He worked with a ferocious, concentrated energy that dwarfed his youthful efforts. He started not with a hospital, but with a specialized high-end clinic, leveraging his unparalleled reputation to attract patients who would pay a premium for his skill. He plowed every profit back into the business. Noma, once again, was his CEO, his strategist, his rock. Within 3 years, the clinic expanded into a smaller, but more technologically advanced and financially airtight, medical center. Investors, seeing his phoenix-like rise and the powerful partnership he represented, flocked to him. They diversified into medical tech startups and private healthcare insurance. The comeback was not just a return to form, it was a masterclass in building a smarter, more resilient empire. Within a decade of the fire, Adewale Banko was not just back, he was a titan of African healthcare. His net worth was estimated at over $500 million, but the number mattered little. What mattered was the legacy of resilience he and Noma had built together, twice. The ordeal had forged in them an unbreakable steel. They knew now that their empire was not made of brick and mortar, but of trust, love, and the profound wisdom of a partnership where one always had the other's back. Final chapter, the homecoming. The flight to Lagos was more than a journey across continents, it was a return to the beginning, a circle completed. For Adewale, the city's humid air and chaotic traffic were not irritations, they were memories, living and breathing. Every honk, every shout from a street vendor, every flash of downfall yellow held echoes of the boy who had once dreamed under the flickering light of a kerosene lamp. When their plane descended over the lagoon, Nomolanga took his hand. He turned to her, and in her calm, assured eyes, he saw every reason he had ever succeeded. She smiled, and the quiet power of that smile steadied him more than any accolade or fortune ever could. The welcome at Matola Mohammed International Airport was nothing short of a homecoming parade. News of Adewale's rebirth had long reached Nigeria. The Phoenix Doctor, as the press had christened him, was a symbol of perseverance, a living legend. But he arrived not as a celebrity, nor as a man seeking validation, but as a son, grateful, humbled, and whole. Waiting for them at the family compound in Ikoyi was a celebration that seemed to stretch into the horizon. Traditional dancers moved to the drum's rhythm, their bodies glistening with the joy of the moment. Banners fluttered with his and Noma's names entwined in gold. Old friends, colleagues, and dignitaries came to greet him, their faces filled with admiration and pride. Noma stood beside him, regal in her Zulu headdress, her Isidwoba subtly accented with Nigerian osook. The crowd watched in awe, the Zulu bride of Lagos. They called her, a woman who had crossed oceans and cultures to stand unshaken beside her husband. Her calm composure, her eloquent words, her quiet strength, they all saw that behind every phoenix, there was a queen who had guarded the flame. That evening, after the festivities, Adewale took his children to the shore. The Lagos lagoon stretched before them, dark and infinite. The night air was heavy with salt and nostalgia. This, he said softly, is where I learned that dreams are not born perfect. They are shaped, sometimes by struggle, sometimes by fire, but always by love. Amora leaned her head on his shoulder. And by partnership, she added gently, glancing at her mother, who stood watching the horizon. Chinua nodded. And by faith. Little Saifo, ever restless, kicked a stone into the water. And by football, he said with mock seriousness, making them all laugh. Adewale smiled. For the first time in years, the laughter didn't echo against emptiness, it filled him. The following week, the Bankos unveiled a new initiative, the Nomolanga Foundation for Women in Business and Healthcare. Its mission was simple yet profound, to empower women across Africa to become co-architects of the continent's progress. Noma spoke at the launch, her words steady and luminous. Empires fall. Markets shift. Fortunes fade. But vision endures. My husband built a dream of healing bodies, I built one of healing futures. Together, they are one dream, an African dream.